Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you guys about light primer strikes. Okay, so you pull the trigger, you get a misfire, you eject the round, you look at it, and you see that it basically the firing pin has just kissed the primer. You get a really light hit on it, and people are usually quick to blame the ammunition or quick to blame the gun. Okay, and as far as the ammunition, I mean, over the last 15 years, I have shot or supervised the shooting of hundreds of thousands of rounds of Tula and Wolf and all this ammunition that people will often say has hard primers, and it works fine when I shoot it. Okay, so the problem is usually a problem with the grip. Okay, same the other possibilities are people will often blame the gun. Okay, and then again, in those cases, when I shoot the gun works fine. Now, that's not to say that it can never be an ammunition problem or it can't be a contributing factor or that it can't be a problem with the gun. Okay, that can also be a contributing factor, especially if you built the gun yourself and there's a lot of resistance, right? But especially if it's a factory gun, okay, it's more likely than not the way you're gripping it. So you want to have a firm grip on the gun. The offhand, right, the other hand is going to do 60 to 70% of your squeezing. Okay, the job of your primary hand is to control the trigger. The job of the other hand is to basically plug that hole. That's the weakest point in your grip. So I'm going to take this meaty part here, plug that hole. I'm going to place my thumb on the frame here. If you got, like with women, a lot of times they can't reach up there, so they'll just tuck it underneath here. They're at a slight disadvantage at that, but if your thumb is long enough, if you can place it up here on the frame of the gun and then basically get a nice tight seal, okay, that's going to give you a significant, it's going to give you good control over the gun, okay? And if you can't get your thumb up here, that's fine. That's fine as well. In most, like with 1911s, usually there's not enough of a frame here in many cases for people to put the thumb there. Usually when I shoot 1911s, I stick my thumb out. But if you have enough of a frame here to put your thumb on the frame, not the slide going back and forth, that's going to give you a little bit extra control over the gun. Because the gun's trying to come out of the weakest point of your grip, and that's the weakest point of your grip here. You want to be as high as possible on the gun and close this hole over here, okay? So when you're shooting, have somebody watch you, okay? And watch your ejection pattern, okay? When I shoot, okay, if I'm shooting over here, my cases eject in a rainbow pattern, okay? And I should be able to put a cup here, and all the cases should land in that cup, okay? So you want a very consistent ejection pattern. If your cases are flying all over the place, if the ejection pattern is inconsistent, that's because your grip is inconsistent, okay? So the first thing to do is fix your grip, okay? Get high in the gun, make sure the other hand that's doing its job of controlling the gun. You see how I got my hand right underneath the trigger guard here? Basically, I'm going to match up these four fingers to the other fingers underneath it. I want a nice tight seal over here, and then I'm going to put my thumb on the frame here if I've got enough space to do that, okay? All right, squeeze tight with the left hand, lean into it, okay? And look for that consistent ejection pattern, okay? So usually if people have a weak grip or an inconsistent grip, usually they'll either get a failure to eject, okay, a stovepipe where the case is coming over here, so that's part of a failure to eject, or a failure to feed, right? The slide doesn't come back far enough and go forward to put the next round in, right? Because the frame has to stay steady while the slide is going back and forth. If the gun's moving all over the place, right, what's happening is you're bleeding off energy, right? All of the energy is not being directed into the slide to send it all the way back, right, and then create that potential energy, right, to send it all the way forward, okay? So you want the frame to be steady while you're shooting and only the slide going back and forth, okay? So if that's not the case, right, the three things that can likely happen is you're either going to fail to eject, fail to feed, or you're going to get a light primer strike, okay? So the way the light primer strike works, right? So normally with most guns, the slide has to close, right, in order for the for the firing mechanism to work. But if you'll notice with your gun, if you pull it back just a little bit, right, just a tiny little bit, and you pull the trigger, right, just pull it back just a tiny little bit, and you pull the trigger, it'll still go click, right? So, right. So see how I'm pulling it back? Well, that's just that pulling it back just a little bit is enough for the firing pin to reach the primer, and that's how you get that light strike. But it's not going to hit it hard enough. Okay. So again, I'm going to pinch it back. I'm going to press the trigger. Okay, and you can see how as the firing pin comes forward, it moves the slide forward. Okay, so that's how you get your light primer strike. Now, if you, especially if you build guns, right? Like I build guns, preferably with a dummy round, right? Or what you want to do is, finger off trigger. Let's say over here, if you guys can see, I got a round in the chamber right now. Okay, so what you want to be able to do, if you build the gun, what you want to be able to do is pinch it back, and it should close on its own. Okay, so if you have built the gun and you pinch it back like this with a round in the chamber and it doesn't fully close, okay, there's extra resistance there, and you got to figure out what you got to do, right? I've got a whole, I got a Facebook group dedicated to helping people build guns. It's called Building Polymer 80s because of and then it's freedom. It's actually I've expanded the group. It's Building Polymer 80s and AR-15s because, and then it's freedom. Okay, so I got a Facebook group. The benefit of this Facebook group is that you can upload short videos of your gun, right? And people there, including myself, will help you debug it. Okay. So that's one of the good ways to use Facebook. Okay. Now you can also post in the comments. Okay. And I can also try to help you there. But it's a lot better if I can see a short video that you took, and I can actually, and people can actually see it. And also if you go to if you post in the comments section, pretty much I'm the only one that's going to come around and help you. Maybe a few other people might. But if you go to the Facebook group, there's a group where people go there specifically because they're building guns. So a lot of people there are gonna want to help you. Okay. So yeah. So if you have built the gun yourself, okay. But even if it's like a factory gun, you wanna be able to make sure that with the round the chamber, that when you pinch it back, it will fully close on its own. Because if it doesn't close, and I've seen guns that don't close, that's going to result in that light primer strike. And don't think that it's just like guns that you built, right? Like Polymer 80s and off brands, because I've seen it happen with Glocks. Okay, particularly Glock 22s that shoot 40 cals, because the 40 caliber ammunition is usually a flat nose. Okay, so flat nose ammunition, it has the often 40 caliber ammunition is often flat nose, so that flat nose creates like a little bit of a ledge. So as the round goes in, sometimes it's not gonna, it's not gonna seat all the way if you're not holding the gun firmly, and the slide's not slamming all the way forward. Okay. The other thing is with hollow points. If you're shooting hollow points, again, that the edge of the hollow point, can catch on something, right? If the gun's dirty, or even if the gun's not dirty. But factory Glock 22s shooting flat nose 40 cals. Okay, I have seen lots of people get light primer strikes with them, jam the gun up. Otherwise, when I shoot the guns, it works fine, right? But I know how to grip it. Okay, and again, the way you grip it is the offhand does 70% of your squeezing, 60 to 70%. Don't do this cup and saucer BS, right? Because what happens when you shoot the gun, your hands are going to separate, right? You want to get as high as you can in the gun, right? Match up your thumb, the skin over there, so there's a tight seal, right? Get higher up underneath the grip. Okay, thumb on the frame, and squeeze tight with your left hand. If I hold the gun in my right hand and I try to squeeze really tight, or if I hold in my left hand, the gun's going to start shaking. Okay, so a lot of times, there's another thing. I should do a separate video on this, but a lot of times people will say that they got shaky hands when they shoot. The reason is because their primary hand is trying to do all of the squeezing. The off hand is the one that does the squeezing. If I squeeze this really tight, it's going to start shaking, right? So I'm going to back off the pressure on my primary, and I'm going to squeeze with the off hand, and now I can squeeze as hard as I want, and that gun's not going to shake. Okay. So that's the video. I have talked about this before, but I've talked about it in P80 videos. And what I've done is I've had to basically I've had to take them off of YouTube because I was getting strikes and they were deleting them, and I was getting so I removed them. So basically I remembered that, hey, since I removed the P80 videos, by the way, you can still find them on other platforms like Odyssey and Rumble, and you can find them on BitChute. So they have them on other platforms. If you're interested, you can send me a comment below, and I'll give you a link to those other platforms. My channel, those other platforms. It's either Pocono Tactical, Pocono Guns, Safa. If you go to those other platforms and you look up any of those things, you should start seeing my videos. Or you can just copy the title of any one of my videos, and then go over there and look it up, and you'll find the video, and then you'll find the channel. Okay. So that's it, guys. That's why I wanted to do this video, because I have talked about this before in other videos, but those videos aren't available, and this is something that comes up. Okay. And a lot of times people will be shooting one, like a 9mm, and then specifically I'll see them go to a 40, and the 40 has, again, that flat nose, and then they'll start having those light primer strikes. And what happens is, with the 9mm, their grip was good enough, but then when they stepped up to a 40 or a 10mm, now their grip is not good enough. Okay, so they're having that situation where the slide doesn't, the entire gun's moving, so it's bleeding off energy. The slide doesn't slam forward all the way. It just stays a crack open like that, just a tiny little bit, and the firing pin can still reach the primer, but it won't hit it hard enough. Okay, so thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon.